You'll be shouting by the end of this message. The word says that Elisha the Tishbite stood on top of the hill desert and called fire down from heaven. And the text declares, Maisha, that the 50 men that were standing there were all consumed. Okay, you're still not shouting yet? Well, 50 men that were behind the 50 saw what had just happened and did not believe that the God of Elijah could do it again. So they bum rushed the hill, and Elijah called down fire from heaven, and it burned them up too. Don't miss this. The problem with us is that when the enemy tries to run up on us, tries to run up on our families, run up on our finances, run up on our future, we refuse to call fire down from heaven to burn him up. Let me cut across the field. Some of y'all are ready to go eat chicken, so let me cut across the field. I got excited with this mic because as I read the text, I found out that God was still in the blessing business. Not only did the first 50 get burned up, but the text declares that a second 50 got burned up. And because the first 50 were burned and the second 50 were burned, that declares that 100 men were now burned up because they seemed to follow the false god. But the third 50, the third group, when they ran up on Elijah, they didn't run up on him to attack him. The text declares that they ran up on him and bowed to him. When they got to Elijah, KG, the text declares that they saw the awesome power of God in the life of Elijah the Tishbite. When they get to him, the text declares that they bowed down and said, "Please, O prophet, have mercy on me. Please, O prophet, the king in which I work for has no idea of the God in which you serve. Please, O prophet, please extend grace and mercy to me because we were only doing the bidding of our master." And the Lord spoke to Elijah and said, "Elijah, I want you to follow him and speak a word this time, not to the messenger, but I want you to speak it to the king." They followed him back to the castle, and the king was lying there. And they said, "How in the world did you bring the prophet back to me when I told you to dispose of him?" They said, "King, you don't understand. When we took the first 50 out there, I saw it with my own eyes. He called down fire from heaven, and the first 50 were burned up." And they said, "Wait a minute, I told you to get rid of him. Don't bring him back here. He serves as an enemy to my political regime." And the king said, the master said again, "King, you don't understand. I saw another 50 try to run rush the show, and he called fire down from heaven and burned them up too." And the king said, "Wait a minute. I said 250s, and there's only 50 coming back. Why didn't 150 come back?" He said, "Well, king, my men wanted to run up, but I said no. I see the power in their God. We ain't moving nowhere because I don't want to die." And the king said, "Well, bring him in. If he's got that much power, let me see what he's going to say to me." When Elijah gets sent, he says, "How in the world could you send messengers to Beelzebub, the false god of Akron? How could you do that when you know God had established us and brought us out of slavery? How in the world can you serve a false god when we were in the wilderness and God released manna from heaven and quail for us to eat? How in the world could you serve a false god when our people were looking at the Red Sea and we had nowhere to go, and God opened up a window right in the midst of our problem, and our people walked across on dry land?" Well, king, I'm sorry to inform you that today you will surely die because you were disobedient to God. He says, "Wait a minute. Before you leave here, tell me why did the fire come down from heaven heaven. He said, that's simple. You didn't know who you were worshiping. He said, I don't understand. You were worshiping Beelzebub. And Beelzebub means like Lord of the fire. Don't miss this. God says, wait a minute. If you're going to attack my servant, if you're going to attack my person, if you're going to attack my child with a false God, I'm going to show you what real fire is. And when fire comes down, it's going to consume everything that tries to attack it. I feel my help coming on. I want you to know today that God sees the enemies in your life, and he's getting ready to release fire to consume them and burn them out. Some of you have been crying and praying and believing for God to root it out. And he says, I'm going to show up and I'm going to burn it out. I'm going to show up and I'm going to take it out. I'm going to show up and I'm going to beat it out. I'm going to show up and I'm going to show out. That's the kind of God that we serve.